Aerts stormed up there and then immediately passed Iserbyt, and it looked like it was some kind of mental blow. Iserbyt thought, okay, if I didn't drop them after this attack, well, I ain't winning today. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social Podcast. Today we are here to discuss the fourth round of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup, which took place in Zonhoven, and I would like to welcome my guests today to do that are Twan.
Hello.
And Issam.
Hey everybody.
The fourth round of the World Cup was the first one in Belgium and the sun was shining. It were beautiful conditions for cyclocross, wasn't it, Issam?
Yeah, it was indeed. We started the race with one guy that was not able to continue very far without crashing. That was the Irish guy Sean Nolan. But the first one that was in the Calde was Iserbyt. We saw also a very strong Laurens-Sweeck, and that Laurens-Sweeck would actually go very fast in the beginning of the race. He would make a gap, 6-7 seconds, and then it was up to Trek Baloise to close that gap with Lars van der Haar and Toon Aerts. Iserbyt was there in their wheels following, but the mistakes were made. Toon Aerts, that was very good in the chase, made a mistake, crashed, and that would hamper him a little bit in the race. But Laurens-Sweeck would eventually come back with the other guys, and then it was a group of 6-7 with Toon van der Bos, but Van der Bos was not able to maintain that over the course of the race. So we actually had 6 guys. Iserbyt then decides that it's maybe time to go. The only one that is able to follow is Lars van der Haar. Quinton Herrmann was not with them and is the one that has to chase back. In his wheel, all the other Baloise Trek of Toon Aerts and the 2 of Pauw Sauze with Van Toerenhout and Sweeck. Eventually they all come back, and the initiative is a bit on Quinton Herrmann because he's the only guy that has no teammates. And he then decides that it's maybe time to put more pressure on with Van der Haar. Hermans actually makes sure that he is able to stay in the front, but then Iserbyt, penultimate lap, has an attack just before the Cal and thinks then that it's maybe time to go. Aerts is the only one to follow and is also able to counter. And on that counter, nobody really had a reaction. Iserbyt was not able to follow. A crucial hill where you can walk or run or go on your bike. And Aerts was the only one that was able to stay on his bike, and then he got free 20 seconds and was able to win the race. The fight for second, Iserbyt and Van der Haar, that were the 2 that were eventually going to battle it out, and it was actually Van der Haar that was able to take second place in Zonhoven and a 1-2 for Trek Baloise and third place for Iserbyt.
I mean, what a race. That comeback by Toon Aerts, it was great to see. I certainly enjoyed this race. I was basically I was right into my TV screen looking at this because it was so close and so tense. But did you guys think that Toon Aerts could win this race in the beginning of the race, or did you think that Laurens-Sweeck was simply too strong?
In my opinion, I was when I saw Sweeck go, especially in the first and second lap, it looked really good, and I was having confidence that he was going to be able to keep that momentum over the course of the race, but he faded and was not really there, and it was a bit different for Aerts when I saw that crash, and he was a bit behind. Well, I thought that he wouldn't really come back in the race, also considering his campaign in the States. That wasn't really great. So there were a lot of surprises in this race, and it was very good to watch. This was very close as well, because I think we had like the top 6 were going into the 9th lap out of 10 laps, and they were still together. So it was really, really lovely to watch, for sure.
It was for sure one of the most amazing races we have seen in a long time. 6 people just around there basically the whole race. The only one I thought didn't really look like he could win is Michael Van Toerenhout, because he struggled on the section where he talked about that Iserbyt made a mistake where you can run or ride, and he would just keep making mistakes there, which meant he had to run, which of course is slower, and the times that he was able to ride, he didn't have the same momentum as the other 5 riders had, and the other 5 riders, I feel like, all looked strong at parts of the race, but all had a weak point except for Van der Haar. Van der Haar looked very solid today. Aerts, of course, struggling after that crash he had, and then a few laps where he just had to make sure that he was staying with the group and trying to recover and putting in an amazing attack. Van der Haar, maybe I think the only one that could have followed him, but just wrongly positioning himself, unfortunately, behind Iserbyt, and Ele just not fast enough on the running part, and Aerts was gone.
Yeah, let's go back a couple of steps when you were talking about Van Toerenhout. That was, I really agree on what you said there. He never really looked into this game for the win, and basically for almost the entire second part of the race, you could see that Zweek and Van Toerenhout were suffering on this long draining uphill before this section we're talking about where you could ride or run. That's really where they got dropped every lap, and then they got back when the pace dropped, but they never really looked into this race. And normally you would have seen a guy like Van Toerenhout take like second or third place behind Iserbyt and play the team game. But you couldn't see that today, so I think that really showed that the illness he had really affected him. Toon Aerts, on his case, he made that crash, he made that mistake which caused him to crash, and that was just too much risk. I mean, he really wanted to close that gap on Zweek, but after that mistake, he was able to close the gap. It was quite an effort. He really was tired for a couple of laps, but I never really lost confidence in Aerts for a podium. I didn't think he could pull off a win, but you could see that he was able to ride sections every lap which others needed to run. And of course, this section after the curl, you had this run up, and I mean, Aerts just came so much further than all the other riders by taking the rut on the right side of our screen, whilst all the others stick to the left. But on the left, you could see before the hill there was like a bit of loose sand, and that slowed everybody down significantly. Whilst if you went to the right, you took a longer line but could carry more speed. And for Aerts, I mean, he jumped off his bike, only needed to do like 4 or 5 steps, and then could hop back onto his bike. And that, for me, at least during the race, gave me the idea that Aerts was always going to be in contention for a podium, especially when, for some moment, Iserbyt was gone with Hermans and Van der Haar, but Aerts was able to close that gap. I think that really showed that Aerts was never really out of contention, but of course that crash had affected him.
Yeah, I agree, but I mean, there was a part in the race, there was really, like, after the crash and everybody was back together, Iserbyt then tried to put them under pressure. Van der Haar was the one that was able to follow. It seemed to me like there were 3 very strong guys with Iserbyt, Van der Haar, and Hermans. And Aerts was obviously also showing like promises in few of sections of the lap, but it was still not really convincing me that he would be able to pull that off. So for me, when he attacked, when he actually countered Iserbyt, that was really, that caught me really off guard. Even the attack from Iserbyt as well, which was a bit weird. It was just before the section of the Cal. It's obviously crucial to be there in the front going into the descent, but it was, in the interviews on the Belgium coverage, Groenendaal was not really happy. That's the team or the trainer of the Power 1000 guys. He was definitely not happy with the tactics of Iserbyt, and I don't really know why he was mad, because I don't think Iserbyt could have done anything different. But yeah, it was a lot of things that happened which changed the race a lot.
Yeah, what actually happened there? Because it was a blistering attack by Iserbyt. I mean, he just steamed past the entire group, past Hermans, past Van der Haar. He dropped Aerts straight from the wheel, went into the car with a significant gap, and at a blistering pace he went down the car, but Aerts stormed up there and then immediately passed Iserbyt, and it looked like it was some kind of mental blow. Iserbyt thought, okay, if I didn't drop them after this attack, well, I ain't winning today. And basically from there on, Aerts was gone. But what do you guys think happened with Iserbyt? Did he maybe gift between brackets Aerts the win, as Richard Groenendaal proposed?
That wouldn't happen. Like, if he could have followed him, I think he would have. I guess the attack must have taken a slight bit too much out of him, and then he made a slight tactical mistake of being behind Toon Aerts on the really steep and longer run-up, which basically decided the race there and then, and it was just out of not being able to do it.
Yeah, for me it looked like it was a bit of a mental blow. I think it's a bit early to already be with the general classification in the back of your head. I mean, there's still, what is it? I think there's still 12 races after this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
then why would you already consider Hermans being your only competitor and being with that in your head? Okay, if Aerts wins, then the 10-point gap is gone, so I don't lose 10 points to Hermans. I mean, there's still many races left. Aerts could very well come back. He took back 15 points today. Of course, he's still 31 points down, which is a lot. But as said, there's still 12 races left, so I think it was a bit of a mental blow. Iserbyt was actually chasing. He only got distance like, I think, 1 or 2 seconds on the running part, which makes sense as Iserbyt is shorter than Aerts. He was really pacing, but then, like, I think the tiredness really kicked in because he made some weird mistakes on that crucial sand section in that corner. He messed up 2 times and he jumps on and then needs to hop off again. That was really weird.
And also toward the end of the race, Hermans seemed to be fading a bit. And if I had to pick the strongest out of that group, it probably would have been Van der Haar or Iserbyt, especially after that attack, which looked quite good.
I think as well, if somebody would like give the win, then you do your best to be second, and he wasn't second. Van der Haar was second, so I think it's it from the outside it can look like he maybe was thinking already about the classification, but I don't think. I just think there was nothing in the legs, and Aerts was just really strong.
Yeah, Aerts was really strong, but I can still get where the people are coming from who thought it was a gifted win, because certainly it can raise some eyebrows if Iserbyt is capable of running with the rest all of the laps and then all of a sudden having a small gap being formed on the decisive moment after launching such a blistering attack. I mean, I can get where it comes from, and well, personally I don't really think it happened, but I can understand the people who do think that it happened. And if we look at Aerts as well, his performances this season have been up and down. I mean, he's had some good races, especially Gieten and Beringen, and then today, but he's also had some performances like yesterday in Ruddervoorde, or especially in the USA, where it didn't look great. So it's not really what we're used to from Toon Aerts. He's usually super consistent and always on the podium, certainly when the big riders aren't there yet. But even if they are there, Aerts is usually the most consistent guy behind them. Let's talk a bit about his teammate then, Lars Van Der Haar, who took that second place in the end of the race. What do you guys think about his race? I mean, Twan, you've already said you thought he was really strong. Could he have done anything different?
I think he maybe could have tried a little bit more to be on the heels of Toon Aerts going into that steep run-up, so that he had more of the space to work with. Because if you have to go around someone, it's not really going to happen. It's just there's one line there, kind of, and if you have to go around the outside, it just doesn't really work. I think, yeah, he could have done maybe a little bit better. Maybe just wanting to be safe with a team victory. But he looked very strong today, and he has looked very strong to this date in the season as well.
Yeah, I think for Van der Haar, I mean, well, it's not really an issue, but if you look at Van der Haar, he isn't really a winner. I don't even remember when his last win was. It's probably Ronse or Hogerheide. I'm not entirely sure. But he doesn't really win a lot of races. He usually struggles to win, but he's always up there. And we saw it once again today. But if he keeps up this pace and form, I think a win will eventually come this season for him.
Although you have to be quick with it, because if the big three come back, you're going to have to wait until after World Championships probably.
That is very true, but as of now, it looks like there's still about a month of racing without those riders there, and there's plenty of races there. And I mean, it's going to be interesting at the European Championships. It's in the Netherlands, so he maybe has a bit of a home advantage, even though we've never raced on the Van Berg. But he will definitely be the Dutch rider to take the fight to all the Belgians there. Let's run down our entire top 10 then. We had, of course, that win for Toon Aerts in front of Lars Van Der Haar and Eli Iserbyt. We also already said that Zweek ended 4th, Hermans 5th, Michael van Toerenhout 6th. Then behind that battle we find Daan Soete in 7th for the Hens Maas team, 8th place for Corné van Kessel, 9th for Toon van der Bos, who had a very strong weekend, and 10th for Pim Ronhaar. I would like to briefly still touch upon Quinton Herrmann. I know we spoke about him a bit, but the 5th place here, it's not ideal. He obviously could have ended 4th if he didn't tangle with Michael van Toerenhout in the final part of the final lap, which ultimately cost him, I think, 1 place. But not great for his general classification ambitions here.
No, but I was also a bit surprised with their tactics. It seemed that he was obviously not in his best condition. I think he was better in the States than he was now. but also the tactics were a bit questionable, especially in the first couple of laps. He was taking it very easy, sitting a lot behind others, not really helping them and stuff, which is okay because you can actually, there's a lot of profit sitting in the wheels. But when somebody in front of you makes a mistake, you have to close the gap again. And I think that costed him a little bit. And obviously what costed him more is probably the chase that he had to do to get back to Van der Haar and Iserbyt when they were away. So it was overall, I think, fourth was probably the highest achievable thing that he could do today. He got fifth, but so I think overall it was just not really his day, I guess.
Yeah, probably the case for him. His teammate Quinton Van Kessel, he ended 8th. Twan, you have been quite critical about him, about his performances in the USA, which rightfully so was the case. They were pretty disappointing, but today things look to have been improving on his side.
Yeah, a solid 8th place finish, not too far behind the leaders as well. Just looking a bit better, more solid, and we'll so slowly see him creeping up there as conditions get tougher, probably.
Yeah, the weather here is not ideal for him. He he actually always performs best when it's a bit muddy, when it's a bit colder, preferably a bit of rain as well. That's when he really excels, but I think he put in a solid ride today. The same can't really be said for Ryan Kamp. The expectations were high at the beginning of the season. He came off a great season last year, constantly up there in the top 5, or at least around the top 5, and then 12th here. I mean, we've given him quite some time, but so far this season it doesn't really look like Ryan Kamp has been able to make another step.
A minute behind Toon van der Puter, basically, and if you would have asked me which one of the two was going to have a better season, it certainly wouldn't have been Toon van der Puter, but he seems to be the one that has made a bit of a step, and Ryan Kamp is just not really finding his feet in this season. It's just not quite been there yet, what was there last year.
Do any of you have potential idea what could be it? Does he maybe have problems with the expectations he put upon himself, or others have put upon him, or is it maybe just a very bad summer for him?
I think personally that one of the things that he can maybe change in his way of riding is don't start too fast, because I think he has a bit what Quinton Herrmann had last year, starting very fast, fading away, and then get beaten by people you shouldn't be beaten by, I think, personally, because I think his level is not where his results are. I think he can be in the top 10 regularly, but it's just every time I see him at the start, I already kind of know that this is not gonna, he's not gonna be here for long, and it's a bit same with Toon van der Puter. He was up there with the 6 that were in front, but then obviously he cannot follow that pace, and then there are guys like Van Soete and Van Kessel that were just behind him that just have a better way of going into the race, and they're just able to have also a better last part of the race. And I think that is what you see now a little bit with the under 23 guys, that they just want to start so fast that costs them in the end part of the race.
I think I've said it before, but I'm hoping that this is just him building up his form slowly toward the end of the season, where last year we saw that toward the back end of the season he was struggling a little bit with tiredness, with form, and not quite getting those results he was getting at the start of the season. So I hope that's the case, and that we'll see him grow into the season and really take that World Championships title with the U23.
Another rider who has been pretty disappointing today was Nils Van Der Puter. He ended 25th only, and I mean, basically if you look at his season, it hasn't been okay. For him, the expectations were also pretty high considering the results he got after the World Championships last year. But so far, he is only 2 top 10s in major races, were 5th in Waterloo and 7th in Fayetteville, which were really good performances. He of course won the C2 Jingle Cross, but then 21st in Iowa, 25th today, it just isn't great.
It's very inconsistent, and I have noticed this through previous seasons as well. But then it was more because of injuries, I think. And it's just very weird. Clearly a very good rider on this day, but just some days where it absolutely doesn't click.
Yeah, he obviously had in that last race in the States, he had stomach problems, and in Rutherford, he finished in the top 10, so we don't know exactly what happened. Is a bit. Even if he had a bad day, that 25th is a long way off of what he normally potentially can ride. It's like also the first time he's not even in the top 20. Also with Iowa with the stomach problem, so I would assume that there is more behind it than only a bad day. I hope, at least for him. And yeah. Like I said, those guys are very young still, and you cannot expect from them that they're going to be very regular in the season. So I expect him in the coming races that we will see him back a couple of times in the top 10.
A final rider I would like to mention is actually somebody who did pretty good in my opinion. Cameron Mason, he ended 17th here today. This is only his first weekend back of racing in a very long time. He crashed last year, broke his collarbone. On the mountain bike, he crashed again. He broke, I think, again his collarbone, or anyway, a lot of injuries. And Tom basically said in our preview podcast that he was still suffering from that. 17th from one of the final rows on the grid is very, very, very good for him. And I look forward to seeing him in the rest of the season, because if this is what we can expect, that this will improve, I wouldn't be surprised if he can end in the top 10.
It is a very promising start for him on return to racing, and hopefully it is a great sign of things to come.
Well, I think we've had it then for our men's race. Let's talk about the women's race. Twan, what happened there?
It was a strong start by Fem van Empel. Unfortunately, she couldn't hold it as Betsema and Pieterse took over the race. And Betsema seemed to be on one of those amazing days. Pieterse couldn't quite hold the wheel, and she would probably have overcooked herself, as Lucinda Brandt would come by her with a very steady performance today. And Alvarado, back from her issues with, what was it, blood values?
It was something with irregular blood values, I think, right?
They never fully communicated what it was, but it had something to do with levels of things in her blood.
It was a very strong return for her, as in the last few laps she would put pressure on Pieterse and also surpass her in very confident fashion.
Yeah, I mean, if we first look at Betsema, the winner here, I mean, Betsema just had one of those days, in my opinion. We all know she likes sand, and she had one of those days where really there was nothing you could do against her.
No, there was nothing anybody could have done to beat her, or even to follow her, because I think they were doing a good job in the beginning to stay in her wheel, but eventually that pace that she was running, that was just it was just too high, and it looked also so easy in a way. In the interview, she also said that it wasn't that easy, but still, I think she was more comfortable than a lot behind her. So it was a very good race from her side, and just one of their days.
Not a lot of mistakes from her as well. And I think, for example, Brandt looking a lot better than she was yesterday. They're also riding a very solid race, and she just couldn't touch her. It was just one of those days.
Yeah, Brandt was a lot better than yesterday, both technical and also in terms of the power she could put down. I think she can be happy with this performance. I think it was confirmed by Sven Nys that she had a bad cold. Sven Nys is now suffering from that cold, and I mean, it's not ideal and it can really affect your performances. So I think for Brandt things are improving, and it wouldn't surprise me if she's fully back on top of her game next week when we are racing in Overijse. If we look behind Brandt, we saw a duo from Alpecin Phoenix, Alvarado and Pieterse, and I mean, Alvarado, it's her return, very good race by her, but first, I mean, these two women, what a technique they have. I mean, the way they ride through the sand, through the downhill, it's just fantastic to look at.
Yeah, that's like one of the truly incredible qualities that both of them have, of course. And when they can string it together on a course like this, it's just amazing to watch. It's very calming.
You could especially see that on the run-up, which was the defining part in both the men and the women's race. There you could see with that corner, Alvarado, the way she took that deep rut through that corner, going through it, and then riding all the way up to the top almost every lap. I mean, you could see that in terms of the power output, it wasn't where it used to be for her. That's not strange because she's, of course, suffered from that injury or whatever it was that she had. Not great for her. But I mean, the technique, it's really there, and it's really a useful asset that she has. And I think that Alvarado will definitely be able to use that asset once again this season, because I mean, we know that Betsema is great in the sand, but the way Alvarado rode there, I mean, it really just showed that for when we come to Coxside, it wouldn't surprise me if Alvarado takes the win there by quite a big margin.
I just want to touch up on Pieterse in a way that it's not the first time she starts very well, is there up front, and then just has that little dip at the end of the race, and it's like, especially for like a day of today, I think if she was a little bit more cautious in the beginning of the race, that could have been a podium. I mean, there's not a big difference between third and fourth, but it's still something she can work on.
I agree on that, although I have to say that Pieterse made one big mistake in my opinion, and that was in the beginning of the race. She was constantly riding the rut up the hill at the end of the Kuil on the right side of our screen, so her left side, and at some point she switched to the left side, and she almost needed to get off her bike immediately, whilst when she was going on the right side, she could ride halfway up the climb, which basically saved her 3 or 4 seconds up on Betsema every lap, and she stopped doing that. I do not know why, but I think that was a mistake which also cost her a severe amount of lap time, because Pieterse and running, so far it hasn't looked like a great combi as well, so I think that that's not ideal, but yeah, she probably started out a bit too fast as well. Let's run down our entire top 10 then. We had the win for Denise Betsema from the Paulshausen Bingo team, her 4th win of the season. Lucinda Brandt then in 2nd, as we just said, in front of Alvarado, who returned here. But Pieterse in 4th, first under 23 rider. She now also leads the under 23 classification. Then we have Fem van Empel in 5th place in front of Sherin van Anrooy and Inge van der Heijden. 8th place, very strong Lien Burquier ahead of Jara Kastelein and Alicia Maria Arzoufi in 10th place. Before we touch upon the great performance of Lien Burquier, I would like to mention Fem van Empel for a brief moment. It's been a while since we've seen such a good performance by her. I mean, she was still 10th in Gieten, but not getting a single top 10 in the United States World Cups. 5th place here, very solid result, and basically the first time since Bredene that we see her put in such a good ride.
Yeah, it looked very good, although some of the running transitions were left something to be desired, shall we say. It didn't look too smooth on some occasions, so some work to be done maybe there, but a performance she can be very happy with, a 5th place in the World Cup. It's where she left off last year maybe, and back at it again.
Yeah, very strong, and I think basically, judging by the park courses I have seen, that Van Empel really likes the bit warmer conditions so far and the bit faster park courses, bit of sand. I mean, her running speed itself is okay. The shouldering today wasn't great, but that's something that looks a bit more of an incident because throughout the race it improved a bit. So I think that Van Empel overall can be pretty happy with this performance. What do you think, Issam?
Yeah, I think overall it was a very good performance. I think she and Van der Heijden were a bit buddies today, and found each other as a bit of as a duo, just to help each other getting through the race. And I think overall a very good performance. And for the under 23 world champion, it's definitely something to work on, the shouldering in a way to get it a bit better, and then it's gonna be only good in the next couple of races.
Now let's come out to, in my opinion, the standout performance here. Lien Burquier, 8th place for the just 18-year-old French rider, first year under 23. And what a surprise. I mean, I hadn't expected her to be 8th here, but a very, very good performance by her, and definitely somebody to keep an eye on out throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, as a first-year junior, we of course, first-year U23, we of course didn't see her race too much last year, as she was a second-year junior. So really good to see her be able to perform like this, being able to put it between some of the best women in the world on one of a very tough course. It is very promising, and hopefully she can well, keep doing this sort of thing.
Yeah, and she's not someone that is like that is her first performance ever that was very good. I mean, in the beginning of the season, you had the Coupe de France, or you have a couple of races there, and she was able to beat Hélène Clauzel as well. And I think we can say that Clauzel is maybe the best French rider at the moment in the women's category. And then if Burquier is able to beat her, I think the talent is there. So if she can build up, it's only gonna be looking good.
Of course, last year we were watching that race in Troya as well, and she got second there as a junior, which was super impressive. So it's not entirely a surprise she does this good, but I would have been looking more at Clauzel because, as you said, Clauzel looked to be the best French rider this season. 2 top 10s in the USA World Cups, then 16th here after a very rapid start. I mean, that's a bit disappointing. I had expected Clauzel in the top 10 here.
Yeah, apart from her very fast start, it was not really a smooth operation overall. I think it was there were a lot of hiccups, especially already the first time she went down in the cow, and just overall it was not really. It just missed a little bit to have that top 10 performance, and I don't think that it has more to do with her shape in general. I think she's able to get top 10s. It was just not today. It didn't seem that it was her day today, so yeah.
Hopefully things improve for her a bit, but at least she was here. She didn't prefer the Coupe de France like we saw with some other riders, which in my opinion isn't great for the World Cup. The World Cup wants all riders to be there, so then it's not good to see a Foucounet and a Roulier choose a Coupe de France race over a World Cup, which isn't even that far away. I mean, it's in Europe, it's not like it's a USA round they are skipping.
I do understand it for Roulier. Like, he's not, like, maybe he can get a top 20, but that's about it. For Foucounet, I would love to see her compete against the best instead of go to France and race there. Obviously, she's a very decent rider, so it's time to test yourself and see where you stand against the best this year.
I think maybe one of the more decisive parts, and you can challenge me if it's wrong or not, but in the World Cup you don't get an entry fee. So like when you go to a race, it's the classification that counts in the end. And if you know that you're gonna miss a couple of races, if you know you're not gonna be very high in the classification, I don't know where the prize money goes to what position, but there's maybe not a lot for you to do then in such a race. And then if you have maybe a Coupe de France where you can earn more money, I can understand a little bit the decision.
Yeah, indeed, there's no starting fees. So in terms of prize money, I mean, yes, it's a C2 race, but there's 2 C2 races at the same venue. So I think in terms of cost, it's okay. But I would still think that that's maybe one of the issues, actually. I don't want to go into this too long, but if the World Cup really wants to present themselves at the Champions League, they should really make sure that everyone is there. So that includes a Foucounet, that includes a Roulier, it includes a Dubot. I mean, now there's reasons for them to not go, but they should make sure that the reasons to not go aren't there if they really want to represent the World Cup as the Champions League of cyclocross where everyone is in this many countries. Then this is not how it should be. But there's clearly a long way to go because there's still 6 races in Belgium and they're only racing in 6 countries when the rules say that they need to race in 8 countries. But I won't go into this too long because then I think we'll still be talking tomorrow morning. I guess we should talk about Arzoufi then as a final rider here in Zonhoven. I'm very happy to see her back in the top 10. Italian champion, 10th place, very good. Or well, very good. Not compared to 2 seasons ago, but compared to last season and this season, a 10th place is definitely solid.
Yeah, I'm very happy that we at least got a few foreigners in the top 10 with the women category. You know, it's very hard to have that happen, and especially in a World Cup, you want a little bit more nationalities in the top 10. So that's the first plus. But overall, also her race has been very good. It was for a while it was looking like Lechner would be the first Italian, but she kind of disappeared outside the top 10. I think some kind of issue was there. And then all of a sudden Arzoufi was there. I don't know what happened in the last lap because there was some sort of incident with her and Aniek van Alphen. I couldn't really see what happened. It was Van Alphen in the last corner that crashed and laid there on the ground, and Artsufi that was the one that took the 10th place. But yeah, still very impressive, and happy to see some foreigners in the top 10.
Definitely good to see that. I'm always happy to see flags that are not Dutch and not Belgian in the top 10. I mean, we didn't mention it, but Vos wasn't here, Worst wasn't here, who wasn't here as well? Vos wasn't here, Rochette and Honsinger didn't come over as well, although we know that Rochette is coming over in 2 weeks' time for Tabor, so that's something to look out to. She said at the USCX series yesterday that she had a couple of things she wasn't happy about how those went in the US World Cups, that she's going to train hard on those for the next 2 weeks and then come to Tabor. So that's definitely something to look forward to. But maybe a bit on Worst. Don't you guys think it's weird that Worst chooses the Super Prestige over the World Cup? And especially on such a last-minute decision to not come to Zonhoven.
I did hear something about a gash in her leg and the band-aid coming off yesterday as well in the final lap. So it probably had something to do with that more than not wanting to show, because you're not going to make the trip all the way to the USA just to give it up on the next Sunday, right?
Well, that's what I thought as well, but at least that's what the broadcast said on Sportza. The reason that she came here was because she prioritized the Super Prestige over the World Cup, which in my opinion would be very weird, especially considering what you said, that she didn't go to the USA for no reason. She went there obviously wanting to get a good classification, and, well, I mean, of course you can miss one race, but the top places are probably gone then.
Yeah, and it would make a little bit more sense if the Super Prestige was on a Sunday, but it's on a Saturday, so the one that you would actually be tired for is the World Cup on a Sunday. So it's just that story, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me at least.
But did they say that she's not gonna that she's not gonna prioritize the World Cup for the whole season, or just this race?
No, it kind of sounded like she is prioritizing Super Prestige and then I assume X2O over the World Cup, which would be a bit weird, especially considering the level. But actually, I'm a bit tossed on this one. I mean, if you're going to prioritize the X2O and the Super Prestige, it allows you to skip a lot of World Cup races and travel.
Yeah.
It does cost you a lot of UCI points and money, but it also costs you a place on the front row at the World Championships. So I just don't know. I think maybe it was just an assumption that she prioritizes the Super Prestige and that in fact there was something with her leg, because she was selected by the Dutch coach, she was available to race. So then in my opinion you aren't going to say, okay, I race Ruddervoorde, I feel a bit tired, I ain't coming to Zonhoven. I'm going to give you guys some results as well from some other UCI races. Yesterday we had the USCX Cyclocross, the Kings CX Day 1, and in the men's category it was Eric Brunner who took home the win in front of Kerry Werner and Curtis White. Women's race there won by Magali Rochette in front of Caroline Mani and Sydney McGill. Very strong performance by the young Canadian. We saw some racing in France today, as we said, the fourth round of the Coupe de France. Men's race was won by Joshua Dubois in front of Timon Ruek and Valentin Guilgaud. Women's race won by Amandie Foucounet in front of Anne Morichon and Marlène Petit. Well guys, we've covered it then here. I would like to thank you guys for being here today to talk about the World Cup, I must say, in Zonhoven.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hosting.
This week there's plenty of content coming up. On Wednesday we have a podcast going up with Caitlin Keogh, who is going to talk about her career with us. Very interesting podcast that is. There will also be 2 preview podcasts because we have a race on Sunday. That is the World Cup in Overijse. And then on Monday, so be aware, no race on Saturday next weekend, only on Monday. Then the XVL Badkamers Trofee starts with the Koppenberg Cross, which is a very special cross. So it's going to get a preview from us. Thanks everyone for listening. If you have any feedback, you can write us at noah@cyclocross.com. If you have any feedback or just any comments, write us there and we will catch you guys later. Goodbye.